This is the Atheist Experience. We are back for another week of television, and we are being sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop down on 307 West 5th Street between Guadalupe and Lavaca. Those start around 10:30 and go on till about 12:30, 1 o'clock when they close, basically. And those are open to any non-theist, atheist, freethinker who wants to come down and just meet some more like-minded folks. In addition to that, we have Monday Night Gamers, which is hosted by Russell Glasser, one of our producers. Basically just get together at his place, play board games, card games, role-playing games, anything that catches our fancy for the evening. And for information on that, you can go to our website, atheist-community.org. And if you email the webmaster, he will get a hold of it and get you information on that one. And finally, we have Atheist Happy Hours on Thursday nights between starting around 7:30, 8 o'clock. It's at Antonio's Tex-Mex, which is near the corner of 35 and 183, the southbound feeder, about a block south of 183. Those are, like I say, about 7:30, 8 o'clock. People come in all night and leave all night, so just look for a table with an atheist sign on it. Okay, April 6th. Every month, the first Sunday of the month, we have a guest speaker in, and that's held at the Austin History Center, which is on 9th and Guadalupe. On April 6th, which is the first Sunday, I believe, not next week, but the week after, we have one of our members, Matthew Uliana, speaking. And he is talking about geological evidence for the Bible and other myths. It should be very interesting. And also in the next month after that, May 4th, we're not going to have a speaker, but we are going to have elections for the ACA board members. So, all right. And another weekly meeting. University Atheist and Agnostics. They're their college group. And they have meetings at 4 o'clock at Fridays at 4 o'clock, and I believe they're in Rainey Hall, room 3.102A. And like I say, that's a weekly meeting for them. Information about that, email uaa@mail.utexas.edu. And that does it for announcements.
So you said at the restaurant now there's a sign that actually says what our group is?
One of the members who goes to it, I believe, carries a little sign. And he just kind of puts it on the table, and they apparently don't mind.
So no need for the hostess when people enter the door to say, theist or non-theist?
Theist, non-theist, smoking, non-smoking. Yeah, very interesting. But yeah, somebody has a sign that they bring in. So, and I believe he's usually there. So.
All kinds of people approaching us.
Okay, and that is it. I'm Ashley Perrien, your host. Our co-host for this week is Gundiga. And our guest is Arlo. He has been on several times, many times over the past years. He's been on the show longer than I have. And he's going to be doing some talking about morality and where it comes from and where we get them from today. We'll be getting to that in a bit. First, we are going to Gundiga for this week's news. What's going on?
Been looking forward to this. Non-war news, please.
Yeah.
We can really talk about some other things to cheer up people.
Yes.
Since I'm from Europe, I thought I might bring some news maybe from Europe here. And I would like to tell you what Europeans think about the whole situation of what Americans do concerning religion.
Ah, yes.
And what Europeans think about that all.
International flair, always good.
Yes. Europeans were writing in the newspapers lately that for the European historical and religious experience, gods and war experience is not the same like in America. Now Europe inhabits the world of laws, institutions and restrictions, which as they consider represent or should represent a new international order. The United States, on the other hand, think that strength is the leading power in the world. And as Europeans say, one more problem is God. For many Europeans, the expression of American religiosity is almost hard to comprehend. They say we couldn't even imagine to write "In God we trust" and our money.
Hard for us to comprehend.
Yeah, we're still scratching our heads on that one too.
They say that the University of Michigan has done some research since 1981, and it shows that the way Americans display their religion is closer to Turkish, Indonesians, and the inhabitants of Iran, not Italians, French, Belgians, or British.
You kind of wear it on a banner on our arm.
But why? Because in America, religion is more and more precisely connected with the freedom of choice. Europeans grow up in the culture of Catholics or Protestants and very often feel free enough to ignore this religion. Americans are looking for religion until it fits like a second skin, so to say. For many Americans, it seems natural that the President Bush adds some religious references and everywhere in his speech. His examples of good and evil, with us or against us, are based on the Bible, and for many people in America are fair and decisive. For Europeans, it sounds more like something theological or ideological that has brought Europe many cruel centuries of suffering and mutual fights against each other.
Yeah, Europe definitely does have more of a history with religious conflict causing problems in the countries than America. So yeah, I could see that having shadows of that again would be kind of a scary prospect.
And that's why separation of church and state seems to be less of a danger in other countries. They experience that.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the connection with that, also there's another article from the BBC correspondent in Washington. He was writing about also a connection of America and Europe. He was writing that the Bush administration hums to the sound of prayer. Prayer meetings take place day and night. Before that, in London, it was not remotely an issue. With the sole exception of one friend who is an evangelical Christian, I don't recall a single conversation with anyone about religious matters in the years I lived and worked in the capital, he says.
Why can't we have more of that?
Yeah, I know. It's brought up at least on a weekly basis. And that's when I'm sitting alone at my house. It's just strange. It just pops up all over.
Yeah, and we're atheists.
He was writing also, our house in London was right next to a church. We talked to the tiny congregation about the weather, about the need to prune the rose bushes and mend the fence, but we never talked about God. How different it is on this side of the Atlantic. The early settlers came here in part to practice their faiths as they saw fit, but today 86% of Americans believe in heaven.
That's awfully high.
86, I know, that's... Yeah. But then again, it probably fits. I mean, a lot of very wishy-washy Christians even who don't go to church every week and stuff like that still believe in some form of afterlife. They just, this eternal justice.
Well, there's a lot of non-Christians who...
So, exactly. So,
And what he was saying also, but much more striking to me and much more interesting that 76 or 3 out of 4 people you meet on any American street believe in hell and the existence of Satan.
Now that's interesting because that's awfully high because we get a lot of Christian callers saying, "Oh, we don't believe in a hell. We don't think you're going to hell." To show how nice they are to, they bring that into their theology. But that's only like 10% less than heaven.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if they don't believe in it and they say it's not there. I mean, yeah, I have heard that before occasionally, but typically they just skirt that. Mm-hmm. There is a hell, and people do go to it, and it is burning for eternity and all that kind of stuff, but, let's not really talk about that. That's non-PC, so we won't discuss that. That's typically more of what I've seen, at least. Yeah. It's just ignoring it.
He also writes, Americans will talk of praying as if it were the most normal, rational thing to do. That during the last week, a child who had been missing for 9 months has been found safe and well, and the event was described routinely on the news media as a miracle.
Oh, the Utah.
The Smart, Elizabeth Smart, I believe. Yeah, we actually got a bit on her.
It's a miracle that religious nut returned her. Okay.
Yeah, we have a bit on her later, too, anyway.
And they say in Irrational Old Britain, the media circus following the finding of the child would have been focused on ways of preventing this happening again, on police errors in the investigation.
It's funny to hear things from BBC every now and then. Us, Irrational Britain. A little bit of bias there, but they kind of earned it. I mean, I'm sure a majority of people in England don't believe in a literal heaven or hell by the sound of it.
Yeah. They say it's not uncommon to see White House functionaries hurrying down corridors carrying Bibles. And I said a friend who works in the press office in Britain tells me that even in these difficult times, such a sight would be highly unusual.
God, that's kind of frightening, too. I'd rather see them carrying, schedules of bills and, what's the new House bill that's going to be voted on, stuff like that. Bible. Well, even if they're a bad one, let's vote on them.
Would they ever carry constitutions?
There you go.
That's an idea.
They weigh a lot less. They're much smaller, more efficient documents. So.
Yes. Talking about some other news now. Going to some other magical things. There's one lady, exactly I don't know in which, some Middle Eastern country. She said that a plant that looks actually like a squash, but they call it like a brinjal. Brinjal has been drawing huge crowds in an Orissa village after a woman sliced it open only to find that its seeds were positioned in a way that spelled the word Allah.
Did something like this happen before? Wasn't there a sheep or something where its wool had speckles and it spelled out Allah, and people crowded around that too?
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, that wasn't all that long ago.
Allah has nothing better to do than to
spray paint sheep.
Yeah, put graffiti in vegetables and on cattle, and
He's not taking care of the world. He's spray painting cattle.
Marking his territory.
We're talking about maybe some other edible things. Returning to Britain. Returning to Britain, there was different news. But schools across Britain have been ordered by local authorities to abandon the ancient tradition of serving hot cross buns at Easter, so as not to offend children of non-religious faiths.
What are hot cross buns? I always thought that was some dominatrix thing. I don't know. I didn't know what that was. Some kind of pastry with a cross in it or something?
Maybe.
I believe it would be. I'm really not positive on that, actually.
Okay.
Can't remember. Lived there for that long, and I don't even know. So.
They were saying some councils were refusing to hand out the traditional treats because they feared that the symbol of the cross will spark complaints from Jewish, Hindu, and Muslim pupils of their families. The spokesman added, "We are moving away from a religious theme for Easter and will not be doing hot cross buns." I say,
okay.
Yes.
It kind of brings me back to the freedom fries thing that we're having. Is it really worth the trouble? But
yeah, I know. Yeah, this kind of thing is on the edge of nitpicking. I mean,
yeah,
it's not hot cross buns. It's eggs and chocolate bunnies and more irrelevant things.
Yeah, it's a springtime celebration. So maybe make it a little bit more springtime related rather than religious, because depending on how that cross is done in there, it could be kind of an obvious.
And I'll explain. I'll explain a little bit more how it was before. Actually, they say although the bands and their distinctive symbols have been a feature of English life for nearly 2,000 years, they have not always been associated with Christianity. The tradition dates back to pagan times, when the cross represented the moon and its 4 quarters.
Wow,
that's interesting. I never heard that before.
Yeah.
And I've heard fundamentalist Christians rag big time on Muslims, saying that their symbol, because it's a moon, is because they were worshipping some ancient moon god.
Yeah.
Ironically, the cross has some association with the moon too. They can throw that one back.
And it was claimed for the Christian Church in 1361 when Father Thomas Rockcliffe distributed the buns to the poor of St. Albans. So it means it was also not Christian before.
It's very interesting. The moon and the cross, that's definitely a new one that I haven't heard before. I have to look that up.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to look that up.
I've seen a couple different things. I think one was a study done on how the brain works or something like that in terms of patterns of light and such, and why a lot of different religions have crosses or that type of theme is because when your brain is deprived of oxygen or something weird like that, these are kind of like patterns that will come out in your visual
like in the cartoon
sense.
When you have stars swirling around
Exactly. It's the same type of thing. You get these stars circling on your head. Well, you see, crosses and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of different religions and ideas that use that vague symbol somehow. So who knows where it comes from? But
well, it's just a couple of sticks. I mean,
it's
pop up all over
not the most complicated thing in the world. So.
Now I think we should go on with some other edible things and very, very even more
I'm getting hungry.
Amazing.
Where's dinner
Even more
tonight?
amazing. It's also in the Middle East about talking fishes.
In the Middle East? I thought that
No, I
was
thought
New
that was
York.
here.
I thought it was in the
No,
Middle
I
East.
think, New York.
Yeah, East Square, New York.
I thought they were reporting. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, it's here.
Yeah.
Which just makes it even
It's even
scarier.
more-
Yeah.
Even scarier.
Yeah, this is a weird one.
Okay. And so it came to pass that a talking carp, shouting in Hebrew, shattered the calm of the New Square fish market and created what many here are calling a miracle. The story goes that a 20-pound carp, about to be slaughtered and made into fish for Sabbath dinner, began speaking in Hebrew, shouting apocalyptic warnings and claiming to be the troubled soul of a revered community elder who recently died.
That's what. It sounds like a joke, doesn't it? I looked this
know,
up. It's in New York Times. It's in a lot of.
A 20-pound carp
real
started speaking
article.
Hebrew. Okay.
Yeah.
They say many people here believe that it was God revealing himself that day to two fish cutters in the fish market.
I wonder, what's the
Yeah.
drug use in New York?
Yeah.
Yeah, some people say the story is as credible as the Bible's account of the burning bush.
I agree. I agree. That part's true.
Absolutely.
Others compare it to a UFO sighting.
Wait, why can't they compare it to the part in the Bible where there's a talking donkey
Yeah.
and there's a talking snake? There's all kinds of
it's
talking
even
animals.
closer, yeah.
I mean, if people really believe stories like that, why not buy this one too?
A fish having a fit.
20-pound fish. That's scary.
A
I
20-pound
didn't know it
carp.
was so large.
They said the fish cutter looked around to see if the voice had come from the slop sink, the other room, or the shop's cat.
Oh, that's
So the
right.
cat's talking instead.
Fish wouldn't
Sorry.
be talking.
Then he ran into the front of the store screaming, "The fish is talking!" and pulled Mr. Rosen away from the phone. He said, "I screamed, it's the devil is here," he recalled. But Zalman said to me, "You're crazy, you're Michigan."
Oh,
Yeah.
Michigan.
Michigan?
I don't know even what this thing. But Mr. Rosen said that when he approached the fish, he heard it uttering warnings and commands in Hebrew.
Okay, now if you're going to base your daily life on a talking carp, we've got issues.
So the fish commanded Mr. Rosen to pray and to study the Torah and identified itself as the soul of a local Hasidic man who died last year.
Was it waving its fin? Was saying, "You've studied the Torah. And you pray every day."
Apparently, this must have been quite a substantive discussion here.
They said the story had been told and retold, and many Jews believed that the talking fish was a rare shimmer of God's spirit. Some call it a warning about the dangers of the impending war in Iraq. Actually, no, they're
Yeah, not impending
going
anymore.
on. And they say two men do not dream the same dream at the same time. And then others consider it as fictional as Tony Soprano's talking fish dream in an episode of The
Sopranos, yeah.
What a coincidence!
I know, I kinda wonder.
Yeah, I wonder if they got the idea from The Sopranos. And this might be for publicity for their fish market or something.
There you go. Who's going to come around to see the talking carp? So,
They're saying, as for Mr. Nivella, a practicing Christian, he still believes the babbling carp was the devil. His wife told him he was crazy, and his 6-year-old daughter even laughs at him.
I'd agree with them.
Even his 6-year-old daughter. Good for her. I hope she's a future atheist because of this. And I remember reading that the fish isn't around for evidence anymore
Oh,
because didn't he chop it up?
Yeah, they actually
I think
chopped
they
it up.
killed
They
it.
chopped it up and they
Yeah.
sold it.
Yeah.
yeah. My God, it's talking to me. Oh, well.
Yeah, it's still worth $5 a pound. It's perfectly good.
Can't let this good fish go to waste.
Somebody ate that.
So even if it's,
And they thought it was some dead relative speaking.
Yeah.
they sold their
Oh, a
His
revered
real-
leader.
a revered-
Or something like
okay.
that, yeah. So, but still.
and somebody's eating it. Right now. That's weird.
I can't believe if they would think this is a god and they would kill the god like that.
Yeah, I know. Well, they thought it was the devil also.
Oh, yeah.
That's
to
the
be
one
sure.
who chopped it up was the one who thought it was the devil.
Okay.
Okay.
To be on the
Cleavers
safe
for the devil is like, Superman and Kryptonite.
Yeah. Okay. So, well,
side. Yes.
good for him saving us from a devilfish.
All right, we don't have to worry about the devil anymore.
Now let's have something much better for dessert.
Now so much edible.
Yes, we have so many. It was like everything about
Incredible edible atheist.
We're going on about the ice cream.
Practicing some edible skepticism here.
Yeah, it's really. It's all connected with something about godly things. Okay. Magnum a la Ice Cream recently proposed a campaign to advertise their ice creams by comparing them to the 7 deadly sins.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, 7 deadly sins: lust, gluttony, sloth, greed, revenge, vanity, and envy.
Sloth. Wow. Sloth-flavored ice cream.
And Christians in South Africa objected, and Magnum renamed their campaign Naughty No-Nos.
I thought it was a good idea. It's too bad they have to rename it. I mean, big deal. People use the 7 deadly sins, in all kinds of secular ways to represent,
Yeah, but ice cream flavors?
Ice cream flavors, but it's nothing worth protesting.
The 7 deadly sins give into its media campaign for Magnum Ice Cream 7 Deadly Sins line extension took out the Media Alliance Grand Prix at the 2002 Cannes International Advertising Festival. They said we were looking... Yes, they got even Grand Prix for that.
7 deadly sins. Give in to it.
Yes.
So people, I guess Christians were sincerely concerned people were going to give in to sins because of ice cream. This is so good, I think I will commit murder.
Yeah!
They said we were looking for the surprise element. Lead said it had the element and execution. The limited edition ice creams do sound sinful. For example, gluttony, chocolate mud cake ice cream smothered in rich chocolate, or vanity, vanilla, and champagne swirled ice cream covered in white chocolate topped with silver cake decorating balls, and, for example, sloth, vanilla ice cream with peanut butter chocolate. That was just amazing.
Who's coming up with that stuff?
I think it's cool.
That's just amazing. All around the world, people are free to talk about it.
Yeah, and that was in Britain, or was that over here?
It was actually, I think, even in Australia.
Australia?
But the ones who were objecting because they were selling the company Magnum company, ice cream company. They're selling ice cream all over the world, everywhere.
Okay, so it's an international group. Well,
it's international, actually. Yeah.
So they know what they're doing. Now
something else interesting and maybe funny. About skiing championships for priests.
That's funny.
Say, may the Lord ski with you.
Oh my God.
Was the official motto of Italy's first ever national skiing championships for priests held this week. 40 clergymen, including a 73-year-old, competed, becoming downhill racers for the day in an event blending sporting prowess and spirituality, according to the organizer. The fun break took place just after the start of Lent and included a group photo with a crucifix in the middle.
So is this like one
made
of the
crosses?
Is this one of the Pope's many campaigns to get the priest's minds off the choir? Skiing, it's a skiing, not screwing project. It's good for them.
Okay, well, going back to one of your stories here, really quickly. You had mentioned that Elizabeth Smart, who was found a couple weeks back, alive and well. No thanks to all the psychics that called in and tried to help out with the investigation. Apparently there were about 600 of them that called in and said, and most of them were saying where they can find Elizabeth Smart's body. Well, they had a 50-50 chance on getting it right on alive or dead. Turns out they were wrong on that. And also, I think even a group of them, SciTech, a Seattle-based company of remote viewers, claim that in a crypt that holds the skeletal remains of ancient American Indians, that's where they would find her body. Well, apparently not. They went down there. They called up the police. They went down there. They got a full investigation. They got all the police wandering around inside this crypt looking for the people. And after they were done, they were still complaining, saying, well, it wasn't a full enough investigation. We didn't look around long enough or hard enough or whatever. Well, you're wasting your time. Anyway. So, 600 people called in. Not a single one apparently was right. So
I'm surprised Bush isn't using psychics to find weapons of mass destruction.
Dowsing rods.
Weren't we doing stuff like that in the 50s?
Yeah, dowsing rods out there on the battlefield. So, and also, I printed this sheet out. This is from Skeptics Dictionary, their news page, I guess. And James Randi has announced that his 1995 book, An Encyclopedia of Claims, Frauds, and Hoaxes of the Occult and Supernatural, is now up on the internet in its entirety.
I'm going to look that up.
I don't have the actual link, but Skeptic's Dictionary is skeptic.org.com. And if you go to the news, it was on February 6th. They got a link there. But yeah, an entire book by James Randi on the internet. That's pretty cool. So, okay, well, Arlo, what you got to tell us about?
All right, well, today, I did something interesting last week. Often on this show, it's brought up about where do morals come from, and we usually have a back-and-forth debate with callers trying to make it clear that you don't need God to have morality, and the fallacy that religion actually hinders morality in many cases as well. And what I wanted to do today was, this is an interesting idea. I think everybody should try this, but just get a pencil and a sheet of paper and make an outline of your moral values. I don't think many people do this. I certainly don't think many religious people do this. But I was going to do it, and I did it. I'm glad I did, because it really helps to have all the things that are important to you, line up principles and such, to be sure that they don't contradict, and to kind of figure out a hierarchy of what's important, what's least important, and so on. And I just wanted to share my outline of my secular moral values. And so what do I value as an atheist? I value what I have to value, and top of the list comes rationality. Often we talk about rationality on this show. I don't think have we ever really given a definition for it. I know everybody should know this, but I myself didn't really have a good definition for what rationality actually is. And I think that the best definition for it goes something like this. Rationality is man using his mental faculties to determine his outside environment using his senses: sight, smell, touch, sound, and such. And now, today, with the fruits of modern science, we use telescopes and microscopes to see the very small to the very distant and large. You can see from the infrared to the ultraviolet. Now all our senses are enhanced through science. And sadly today, some of the most popular beliefs are largely anti-science. Rationality is something that everybody claims to be rational. Everyone from the agnostic to the creationist. And and I think they have to. There's no alternatives to being rational. Even if you have, pure faith in some holy book to tell you what reality is, it was your mind that had to determine that this holy book is better than all those other holy books. This holy book describes reality better than the others. And why don't us atheists choose the best holy book? Because we choose to go straight to the source, reality itself. Isn't it obvious? And many people fail at being rational, even though everybody seems to think it's something that they should be. Rationality is something they should use. And I think most of that is because people believe in things that are false. If one fact in your understanding of reality is false, it has to distort all the facts that surround that one. And you'll fall to the pushers of mysticism, which are everywhere. And I think if enough people practice healthy skepticism, those pushers of mysticism will go out of business. And I think that we can, if you understand reality, you'll be rewarded in this life. So it's really in your best interest to be rational and understand your surroundings. A lot of people choose to be ignorant to feel better, to not understand what's going on around them, but reality is the medium which we're in. It's going to give us everything we desire. And anything we can, and
it'll give us what we desire. It may also give us a couple things that we don't desire, but
right. But to avoid those things you don't desire, that too is reality, isn't it?
Exactly.
So
work with what we have.
And to do this, you have to be honest with yourself, and it pays to be honest with others, which comes to a second value in my moral system, which is honesty. Honesty is believed by most to be unachievable. I hear it all the time from people that, oh, well, we all lie, or anyone who says they don't lie is the biggest liar of all. Well, I don't give in to that. When you lie about any fact, once again, all facts being connected, you're distorting a fact, you're going to have to lie about other facts to keep that one supported. And it ends up being you having a war up against reality. Who's going to win? You or reality, right? And sure, there's some petty little lies that you might get away with, but then, why bother? Why is it worth it? Why not build an ethos of honesty for yourself? I mean, people will value for that. They'll trust you, and that has great benefits in itself. And, yeah, it's always hard you can't really prove when you're telling the truth, but one thing's for sure is people will know that they've never caught you in a lie. People will remember that. And often people know when they're being lied to. Like I always hear people saying, he lied to me about this, she lied to me about that. They tell everybody about it except the person who lied to them. The person who tells the lie doesn't know that they've been found out.
Yeah.
So it's a very good principle to stick to for rational reasons. And so lying is just one of the, I guess what are referred to as the basic thou shalt not. Thou shalt nots. I mean, there's killing and stealing. And, those are a couple of good ones. Not original to the Ten Commandments, but I don't follow them because they're in the Ten Commandments. Many Christians kind of pounce on us when we talk about rational reasons why not kill and steal and say, ooh, you're following the Ten Commandments. Well, I'm sorry, but, like the first 4 commandments I don't follow. I'll prove I don't follow the Ten Commandments anytime I want to by breaking the hundreds of other commandments in Leviticus that are completely irrational and impractical. So I do not follow those 2 because it was written in stone a long time ago or because some powerful being is going to be capable of enforcing them on me. People who follow laws like that, it's kind of like just a slave being obedient to their master. I think they're morally bankrupt. It's just following a program.
Yeah, it's not actually thinking for yourself. It's simply taking a list of rules and saying, okay, well, I'll follow these. Mm-hmm. No thought necessary.
Yeah, people shouldn't be afraid to think. It's not going to lead you to do bad things. It's going to lead you to be a moral person.
Yeah.
Being rational does lead to morality.
Yeah, morality is not following rules.
Mm-hmm.
Blindly following rules.
Right. And often you've said on the show, the best way to justify not killing someone is simply because then it won't be justified for anyone to kill me. If I don't kill anybody, then it's justified that no one has, any excuse to kill me. Same thing with stealing. If I'm stealing from others, it's as if I've lost my right to own anything, right? Because how could I possibly justify someone not stealing from me? Yeah. And so we make this agreement among ourselves, it's like, hey, I won't kill you, you won't kill me, I won't steal from you, you won't steal from me. That's the contract, sign here. But, it doesn't even have to be written down. It's extremely obvious. It'll become more obvious when we realize this is why we have rules that we abide by, rational rules. And, what all this comes down to is individual rights, which is what our country is founded on. This is the best place in the world where we can be rational. Why won't we do it? So religion has no place in government, especially a government that's going to support individual rights successfully. And a couple of things I want to talk about are not really a moral, not something that's moral or a value, but things to be avoided. I guess you could call it an anti-value, like guilt. It's worth noting as something to be avoided.
Ideally, you would be doing things that don't get you guilt.
Exactly, that's it. I mean, I remember back on a show once when it was the question was posed to me, who do you confess your sins to, or who do you confess your guilt to? Don't you feel guilty all the time without confessing God? And that's just it. The rational thing to do is not put yourself in such a predicament where you're feeling guilty.
Yeah.
It's another incentive to do right. Yeah. And another one that does not involve anything supernatural. The guilt is there. How guilty you feel should be a barometer to how moral you are. Not just, collecting guilt and then dumping it all onto God or onto the priest at the end of the week and patting yourself on the back like you did God and society a big favor. That's really disturbing to me, and I see people in that cycle over and over again. Yeah. It feels great to live without guilt. I stick to my principles to have that feeling.
Yeah, on Saturday, sow your wild oats. On Sunday, pray for crop failure. But also going back to confessing to the priest or God or whatever, that's kind of avoiding the responsibility of the apology, the admission, whatever. Ideally, shouldn't you be confessing to the person that you wronged, assuming that there is one person or a set of people that you can go back to? If you wrong them, you go back to them and apologize and say, oops, I screwed up.
Right.
And, I will learn from this. Rather than just, going to somebody else and dumping it on them. Take responsibility.
Mm-hmm. And apologizing to people isn't always the most pleasant thing. It's kind of embarrassing because you've done wrong. It's another reason to avoid doing wrong in the first place.
Yeah.
And, so avoiding guilt, just simply not being guilty by leading a good life. You can have pride in the choices you make. You can feel confident in your convictions. And, I think that by not leading a guilty life, death will be a lot more easier to handle. You'll have something good to look back on, not something to regret. And, I want death to be a glorious thing by living the perfect life, by trying to be the ideal person. It's something to strive for. We should strive to perfection. We shouldn't take in the lie that we're all inherently sinful and we can't avoid it. So, let's just choose your favorite sin because you're going to sin anyway. And, I see a lot of people doing this. So
that's an upsided way to look at the world.
And so avoid guilt, and another thing to avoid like the plague is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, live without it. Everything I have to say about guilt, I have to say about hypocrisy. Living in hypocrisy means living in contradiction. If you don't practice what you preach, it means one of two things. It means either that what you're preaching is wrong, and it's going to hurt you, and that's why you don't practice it. All right, wait, I'm sorry, I'm getting a message.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, well, we'll take calls soon. But anyway, what I was saying is that, if you're a hypocrite, either what you're preaching is wrong, or what you're preaching is right, and you're just hurting yourself by not following through on it. So it's one or the other. Stop being a hypocrite if anybody's living in hypocrisy. Deal with it. Make a decision. And another bad thing about hypocrisy and guilt is it'll be used against you. I mean, people will point that out. You'll have not a leg to stand on. No one will listen to you if you're not following your own morals and values and rules. And it'll be used as a weapon against you, not just by virtuous people, but especially by other hypocrites. And back to the positive, another thing I consider a great value is optimism. You have nothing to lose by being optimistic in yourself and in others, especially in yourself, because, if you think you can achieve your goals, you might or you might not. But if you think you won't achieve your goals, you absolutely will not. There'll be no incentive to try. And imagine all the discoverers and inventors throughout history have done something great to give to mankind, to raise us up a bit more out of the Dark Ages. If they had been pessimists, never would have happened. We'd still be in the Dark Ages. And imagine all the pessimists who could have done something for themselves and for society who didn't because of simply being pessimists. I think optimism is very important, and we all need to be aware of that. And a lot of people, especially atheists, are pessimistic about other people. I hear it said a lot that, people are too stupid to be rational. The majority of the people are dumb. You can't change their minds. Often people telling me this are atheists, and I say to them, weren't you raised Baptist? We do change our minds. I've changed people's minds. I'm proud of that. And ideas can spread. It's not that people are too stupid to be rational. People are being stupid. The majority of people are often being stupid, and that's not a sign of a bad mind. I think that's a sign of a bad philosophy. I mean, even mentally disabled people have enough rational faculty to be rational.
Yeah.
And one thing that's easy to take note as far as spreading positive ideas and spreading rationalism, which is not the most popular thing now, but I think it can be. Interesting thing to keep in mind is it's been proven by many studies that everybody knows everybody else by 5 degrees of separation. I'm sure you heard the classic example that everybody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows Kevin Bacon. Right? And so all you have to do is have an argument that is worth convincing 5 other people who in turn think it's worth convincing 5 more people. And you don't have to be rich or famous to spread a message. Yeah. You just have to have a good rational argument. And of course, this is for, a lot of people, they'll shut their ears and they won't listen to you. Okay, I can understand that if that's hopeless. There's a lot of rational people who will sincerely listen to what I have to say, and there's hope in that. I don't think people are too dumb to understand these things, these concepts. And the last thing I want to talk about is feelings. Because it's often posed to us as, well, if you're purely rational and you make all your decisions on rationality, aren't you void of emotion? And that's just not true. The way
we're all Vulcans.
I mean, the way it is feelings should be a reaction to your decisions, not a cause. Use your rational faculty. Separate emotion from making your decisions. And after you've made the right decisions, it will bring you happiness, love, joy. If you make the wrong decisions, that will bring you sadness and sorrow and anger. And I think that's where emotions fit into it. I mean, I remember times, we've made the rational decision to get married and live together, and we're just overflowing with happiness. And we were rolling around on the floor laughing last weekend,
Too much information.
Well, no. We're just joking around about stuff, It's like, atheists have emotions too. It's our reward for our rational decisions. I think it's a smart way to look at it. So my conclusion to all of this, to having a philosophy based on rationality, not blind faith, is it really is optimistic about the human mind. If we respect the mind more, certainly more people will be scientists, which I think will lead to more progression and things like life extension and less disease. And a value of the mind will have, we won't be abusing our minds with drugs, less crime. I think rationality can bring us all the things religion has always been promising us and has failed to bring us. It doesn't deliver the goods.
Okay.
And that's just what I wanted to say. I think that, people should just sit down and think about what are their values, their most important values to them.
Yeah. Yeah, having to think about this kind of stuff, it really makes it much more clear and concrete as to why you're following this set of rules and not another, and why you're acting the way that you are. Just having to sit down and put solid thought into it rather than just running day to day on a preset program that you have, and not taking the time to think, where does this come from and why did I choose this program? So, yes.
Right. And people use their rationality even for those rules. Like, everybody seems to know that, okay, thou shalt not kill, but if someone's trying to kill me, I'll kill them. Everybody kind of figures that out on their own, but they need to admit that's them using their rational mind.
Exactly.
The justification is, okay, I won't gain anything from killing this person, certainly, but I'll sure lose a lot if they kill me.
Yeah.
So what do you value more? It comes down to values.
Yeah, I always take that argument usually whenever we get that morality question, that it's a social contract type thing. I won't steal from you, you won't steal from me. Let's just, go on. I was an economics major. I get it from that. So everything is a profit-loss analysis. You don't sit down and think about it. Of course, you don't, think every time I go into a store, should I steal this? Well, if I do, blah, 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 blah. It just doesn't work like that. You have, this set of rules. But an economic discussion could be the basis for it.
Right, yeah, you don't. That's the whole point of principles. You don't have to think about it every time in every situation. You think about it ahead of time.
Yeah, make up your mind and go with it. So
be clear about it. Yeah. Know why you're doing what you do. Know you behave the way you behave.
Yeah. Okay. Quick note. We are a live call-in show. Our phone number is 477-2288. Now, we were having some problems with the phones earlier. We're going to try and take calls as soon as we get a couple in. So hopefully that will work out. Before we do that, though, here's something actually from today's Austin American Statesman, their little internal magazine, The Parade. And their cover article on it, Can Prayer Really Heal? And basically talking about, all these hundreds of studies that have been done over time about why prayer could be good medicine and how people are actually helped, and if they pray for themselves, if they have, people behind the scenes praying for them, stuff like that. It goes into a couple different studies that are kind of minor. One of them it talked about, actually, it was kind of funny. I can't remember. Anyway, I think it was a National Institute of Health. They did a study on some people that were in a cardiac care unit. I think it was 500 and some odd people who were not prayed for, 400 and some odd that were prayed for. Now, at the end of this study, they took some people and they said, okay, pray for this half of them. And they gave them the first names. And they're praying for a speedy and uncomplicated recovery or something like that with no complications. And essentially, what happened in the study was there was no difference at all between the two groups between the length of their stay in the hospital. The group that was prayed for did not stay in the hospital any shorter or longer than the group that was not prayed for.
Mm-hmm. And the key there is they did not know they were being prayed for?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, they did not know. And also, but even despite that, their prayer was for a speedy recovery. They didn't get that part. But they still came up with some kind of contrived way of looking at numbers and incidents and what happened to them while they're in the hospital to say that the prayed for group did do a little bit better in this study. Now, again, exactly what they were looking at there, it's some kind of CCU. They didn't define exactly what that was. But essentially, it's one of these things that it's never been tested, it's not documented, it's just kind of a general wishy-washy, they did better thing when they were in the hospital. But again, it didn't do the quick recovery. That did not happen. But also just one point on this, can prayer heal? Would not praying for someone and asking for God's help to, speed their recovery or whatnot, would that not imply that God is not all-powerful? Or all-knowing?
Here's the thing. I mean, if God is merciful and he's going to heal people, I mean, he's either going to do it or he's not.
Exactly.
And, yeah, that's the strange thing, is that when you're praying, you're asking God to go against his will.
Exactly. God essentially, assumably, according to most people's definition, he knows everything and he's all-powerful. He has some kind of divine plan for the world. Mm. I know exactly, he knows exactly what's going to happen at every moment in history and what's going to happen in the future. He's got it all worked out.
And then you pray and you screw that all up.
I know. You're asking God to change his plan, and now he's got to go and rework the entire frickin' thing. Yeah. Is that not a little bit presumptuous? Mm. So,
and the things some people pray for are just ridiculous. I mean, sometimes it's not about it. I mean, we had a woman call and she said, well, I prayed, this is years ago, I don't even think you're watching the show, this is years ago. She said, I prayed for a used car and I wanted it to be blue, and the next day I found the perfect blue used car. I'm just thinking, is God just your little, your little slave, or your little
little servant boy,
used car scout or something? It's just crazy.
Oh man, that's interesting.
That's real degrading to God.
I know. I was the all-powerful creator of the universe yesterday, and now I'm looking for used cars. Strange folks out there. Okay. Calls? Sure, why not?
Let's try this.
Yeah, we have Jim on line 1. Okay, Jim, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Do we sound okay?
You sound a little fuzzy.
Okay.
There's some
like you're getting feedback.
Yeah, well, go ahead and ask your question. Let's see what we can do for you.
Okay. All I can say is that I work in the arts, and like I have personally myself, it's hard to express it, but personally myself, I have never met, including myself, an artist who does not believe in God, and I have met famous ones. Because they believe the energy coming down into them, expressing themselves artistically, is God.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold it right there.
Yeah.
I'm an artist. My wife is an artist. She painted this shirt.
Yeah.
She paints beautiful nature scenes. She's also a cartoonist.
Talking about musicians.
Huh?
I'm talking about musicians.
Musicians?
Oh, musicians.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you can create art visually, but we can't create sound.
That I don't know. I just know that every artist I've ever met, and I've met some famous ones, Moody Blues, some of the groups of the Moody Blues and the Who, they're not real religious people.
Dan
but they
Barker.
still believe in God because on a certain night they just project themselves like you wouldn't believe. And it's got to be God that's laying down the licks that they're doing. I mean, like,
it's
just
the
like
connection
like when they're
between
writing
God
a
and
song, it's just
projecting yourself.
like David Gates, he was telling me when he wrote If, that, when he was writing, it's just like something took over.
Yeah.
Well, it's called intuition.
And it was
inspiration,
just like,
intuition.
something was there. It's hard to explain. It's like being in a zone and everything. I mean, it's just like...
Well, Dan Barker actually does some music, and he's a big atheist. I think it's Dan Barker.
Oh, yeah. Dan Barker. He does music about atheism.
Exactly, or
and free
specifically about atheism and free thought.
All kinds of tunes he comes out with.
So there's at least one person who doesn't believe in God.
Okay, there may be some, but I've never met him. Listen, why do you enjoy a sunset?
So what?
How come you enjoy a sunset, don't you? And you enjoy a picture. Just because she's an artist and painter doesn't mean there's a God. God could still be working through her.
We have seen apes that enjoy the sunset too.
No, you haven't either.
Okay, you're going to tell us what we've seen.
Differentiate between, let's say, a sunset in the ocean and a sunset over the mountains, and you think they're beautiful. You're seeing art, and because of that, God gave you the ability
God
to
is the
enjoy
divine
art
artist
and look
now.
at it subjectively.
So God is the divine
because
artist.
You can't look at a sunset and really enjoy it and appreciate it.
Yes, actually, our appreciation of something like that is much better than possibly some theist ideas, simply because when we look at a sunset or we go into a garden or something like that, we appreciate it for what it is. Mm-hmm. We don't have to make up fairies living in the bottom of it to enjoy it.
Imagine the sun is the size of billions of Earths being crushed in on themselves in nuclear explosions, atoms splitting and meshing into a plasma, and its light is shining out from it onto our little planet, and we're just this tiny dust in a sunbeam. And that's just, how is that not beautiful for the way it is? Why does it have to be a big invisible man in a cloud go, there it is? I mean, I don't know why you're dividing.
God gave you the ability to enjoy all types of art. You'll never explain away art. You atheists will never explain away art. God gave us art. I know it.
But you're calling everything art. You think God made everything. You're calling artists. Everything's art.
Everything.
You've made art meaningless. Art doesn't mean anything now. It's just everything.
I appreciate the sunset, the garden, just as much as you do. I also appreciate cell phones and modern technology and neat things. Because, we can actually learn the rules of how the world works and apply them to new things. And that's pretty cool. Learning how the world works and how the universe works. And when I look through a telescope and I see, dust clouds or something out there, it looks really neat, but also knowing what's going on there and why it's lit up and why it's red and stuff like that, that's really interesting too. There's more to enjoy when you understand the science behind it and what's really going on than just saying, ooh, God loves me. that cheapens the whole experience.
That's still not the point. I still believe God gave people the ability to enjoy art, and they put certain artists down here to influence millions of people.
Okay, so basically, whatever's good in the world, God did it. It's pretty weak argument that can't really back up anything. I think Manda called it, and poof, Jesus did that. You get a lollipop, poof, Jesus did that.
So are you, caller, are you going to go on telling people you've never met an atheist who appreciates art
or music?
Are you just going to deny the existence of us?
No, I'm not.
Or do you just don't believe the fact that we appreciate a sunset? You refuse to believe that?
No, I believe that you do appreciate it, but I believe that God gave you the ability to appreciate it over an ape.
Well, you believe God did everything, so appreciate, not appreciate, sunset, no sunset.
Like if you go to the Louvre in France and you see all the wonderful masterpieces there, you could enjoy it. An ape would never enjoy it. You're the one with the weak argument.
What?
Okay.
I think I'm
there are lots of links that are just breaking down here.
I'm not going to say anymore because neither one of us.
Calm down.
You got your opinion.
Calm down a little bit here.
I don't know why you're upset about this.
You're never going to change me, and I'm never going to change you. So what difference does it make?
Wow.
Wow. Now there's something to get excited about.
I'm sorry you feel that way. You seem to have a lot of anger. I'm sorry. I'm sorry your belief makes you so angry, but
we can appreciate your annoyance here.
I don't know. I don't appreciate it.
Goodbye. Have a good day.
Okay. Well, you too. Though apparently he sounds very annoyed and maybe not having a very good day.
He sounds very annoying.
So.
This anger that irradiates, I think people are furious that atheists have an appreciation.
Yeah.
And then, and they just say, well, the appreciation came from God. There, I proved God to you.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that.
No, it doesn't work that way. So.
Stamp God on everything. Every little thing you can. Every material thing, and then every process that goes on behind it. This is childish.
And like you were saying, just being able to look at what's actually going on there and how this stuff actually works, how the sun actually works.
Right,
instance.
the sun is amazing. It's a three-dimensional interactive. It's a quantum fluctuating, reality. It
is amazing. Like say, looking at the real world and not just saying, ooh, it's pretty because God made it so.
With a pretty picture.
That. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that cheapens it.
Like the stars being a sphere, where the stars are painted on the inside of the sphere. It's as if people are seeing it from that perspective. It's so two-dimensional.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Okay, well, we'll go to our next caller, Gill. Okay, Gill, you there?
It's Gill.
Gill, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. How can we help you?
Yes. Your temple, or I'll call it as a temple. Your temple and my temple is the same temple, but it's different words, I think. My temple is a Satan, Satan, believing in Satan stuff.
Your temple?
Yes. We're off the Bastrop Road. But,
well, we don't have a temple. I mean, the bagel shop, I wouldn't really count that.
Well, but it's
Did
the
you say
same thing what you're talking about,
What?
Not believing in God.
Okay, but we don't believe in the devil either.
Right.
Well, there's a Messiah. I know there are. It is.
How do you
I bet
know
I can
this?
hear you.
Okay, there is a Messiah, you say?
Yes.
Okay, and I mean, was it Jesus or just some?
No, we don't believe in Jesus. There's a Messiah.
Okay,
It's
then
a generic Messiah.
generic person or spirit
Not one of
or
the name
person?
brand
It's
Messiahs.
a spirit.
Okay, a spirit then. Do you have any evidence of it?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
That's the reason we need you to come to our temple to speak, our opinions and your,
Well, that's what the show is for. Can you tell us some of this evidence that we can look into that there is a Messiah?
Oh, yes. I think there's a Messiah because we believe in destroying stuff and what's going on overseas.
Okay, but there's also stuff being created, too.
We believe that stuff was here already. We're in this world already, just taking over our different spirits. I cannot hear you.
Okay, so spirits are basically creating stuff and, well, destroying stuff here. And that's your evidence for it?
Yes.
Could not human interactions and
the
physics
way you talk and our minister, whatever our follower,
okay.
You sound the same way the way he talks, They just
Okay, but there's a quote out there. I don't know exactly how it goes, but atheists just believe in one fewer God than you do. We have no evidence of some Messiah that's out there causing the war or, letting Ebola out there or something like that, and so we don't have any belief in that either. We have belief in science, and we know about science and physics and human interaction and stuff like that. We don't have belief in some oogie spirit.
Okay, I just thought we Okay.
So, sorry,
I just heard wrong. My wife was telling about it sounds the same way, but it's different believings.
No, I'm sorry. You thought we might have something.
Okay, we just moved to South Texas. That's our believing. The Messiah.
Yeah.
It'd be Satan.
Okay.
Messiah being Satan. You said Messiah.
Messiah was Satan?
Will be Satan.
Will be.
The Messiah will be Satan.
But there is the Messiah name.
What temple are you going to?
It's off of Bastrop Road. We just moved here, and it's off going to Bastrop. It's the last.
But what denomination is this? This sounds very strange to me. Or not strange, it's unorthodox.
Well, I just believe.
All right.
Okay. Yep, we lost him.
I think he was ashamed to say he doesn't go to the temple because I don't think
Wasn't sure exactly what's going on there.
Are you really going to church? Are you making this up?
Okay, well, yes, we are not, atheists. We don't eat babies. We don't kill anything. We don't, we're not devil worshippers or Satanists or anything like that. We don't believe in him either. That's weird.
And I don't believe in that guy's temple. It just sounded too whacked out.
Yeah, and like I said, we have no temples.
Jesus will become Satan or something.
Yeah, Satan will be the Messiah, but there already is a Messiah in Spirit form.
Sounds like some branch of Satanism. See, Satanists and atheists are very different. Very, very different.
Okay, well, we will go to now Ricky. Okay, you there?
Yes, hello?
Yes, hello. How are you? What can we do for you?
Yes, I really understand what you're saying.
Okay, do you have a question for us?
Or a comment.
Do you have a question or comment?
I can't talk.
We can hear you, just barely.
Yes, I recently had a man come to my door and ask me about the evolution versus, the creation by God.
Oh, man came
And
to
I
your
didn't
door?
really have a rebuttal to what he was saying about how Adam and Eve, the whole thing about Adam and Eve. And I was just wondering if you had an argument about how evolution was starting, if you have the complete story of evolution.
Was this an evangelical creationist, like knocking on doors, or was it an evangelical evolutionist? This is strange, the way you worded that. Somebody came to your door and just wanted to start debating evolution?
No, it was a Jehovah's Witness, but
yeah, we get those too.
on.
That's what I meant when I was saying that religion is brought up, at least weekly in my life, even when I'm sitting at home alone. I didn't explain that myself. It's because they come to my door. We've had people come to our doors too. We're in a move. We're too busy to talk to them.
Yes, well, I believe in evolution, but I was just wondering, what is your point on evolution? And, just in case someone does question me again about the subject, I could have a good argument.
Yeah. Well, there are two main points to it. One, evolution, a lot of times they point out that one, evolution they usually mischaracterize as to what it actually is. Evolution assumes that life is already here, and how it changes form from one thing to another, how you get new species and stuff like that. How life actually got here in the first place is a different study called abiogenesis. It's a little bit different. Starting off at the beginning, I guess, abiogenesis, a lot of that has to do with chemistry. People are saying that the chances of molecules coming together and forming the first single cell is like a tornado through a junkyard and forming a, Boeing or whatever.
So that's probably not what happened then.
Exactly. It's all these bad arguments out there. Abiogenesis was mostly based on chemistry. You put certain chemicals together and they're going to react. You put other ones together and they're not going to react.
Things that can form macromolecules.
Exactly.
Almost reacting like crystals. It's a pattern that replicates itself. Yeah. And what you need is a pattern that replicates itself that has slight variations, and that leaves room for natural selection. Which leads me to talk about actually something else that was in the news, but I'll get to that after,
Okay.
That next. But talkorigins.org, is that
it?
There's a website, talkorigins.org. Oh yeah, it's on the screen right now. And that's a good resource for evolution and debates, and I think, isn't it like a search engine where you can put in just about any creationist question that's usually posed? Common questions
Yeah,
are
I believe
posed.
there's a search engine, or you could just browse the archives, browse the fact or whatever, and that's got some incredible articles on it.
Okay, I have
We're not
another
scientists, but the people who put that together, I think.
One more question.
Yeah.
Can I have one more question?
Sure.
Yes. What is your thoughts on the transfer of energy after death? Or do you believe in the transfer of energy after death?
Certainly
from one
energy
organism
is,
to another.
Certainly energy is transferred. When we die, there's bacteria and creatures that eat us up, and in turn the energy's in them. So there's evidence that the energy's going somewhere. But if you mean energy organized into what we call consciousness,
right,
that part gets disorganized. It's as if the energy that makes that is getting broken up into smaller pieces, and it's usually taken advantage of by smaller animals. The thinking ability is gone. Or when someone is cremated, all the energy is burned from the body. Literally, the energy, we're talking about physics here, the energy is transferred somewhere else, but it's not in human form anymore. So afterlife is really, I don't see any evidence for anything worthy of being called an afterlife.
So that would take out any existence. So you say you do not believe in the existence of supernatural things such as ghosts.
Right. The energy transfers.
Because they wouldn't have a thought to do human things because they don't have a thing.
That's right. The energy transfers somewhere else, but the information that made you is gone. And I remember thinking about this when I was really young, wondering, what is death? Just what happens? And I was thinking, well, okay, you won't have eyes, so you can't see. Because if our spirit, our soul could see magically, we wouldn't need eyes as components. So you can't see, you don't have ears, you can't hear, you don't have nerves, you can't feel, you don't have a brain to have your memories, because obviously the matter in your brain is connected with your memories. That's why people have amnesia after accidents. And when you take away all that, well, what's left? There's really nothing you can do, there's nothing to reminisce about, you're pretty much gone. And what that, tells me to do is to be optimistic about what is possible, and that's to prolong your life as long as you can. That's why I'm really interested in life extension sciences.
Yeah, I think somebody in the group actually had a similar analogy. They always said that, when you die, where do you go? Where does your spirit go? Where does the essence of makes you? Where does that go? Well, when you have a truck and it goes to the scrapyard and it's torn down, where does the truckness of it go? When you build a sand castle and somebody walks over it, where does the castle go? Well, it's the same thing. It's just broken down. You have physical connections in your brain that make memories and give you personality. When that just stops working and starts breaking down, well, it just goes. There's nothing there to escape it. So yeah, no permanent life, no afterlife, no spirits, nothing like that. So it's just what we got in our heads.
But do you think energy, as when it was first coming about, had original conscience? Like the energy that created us or that passed through us to create us? Do you think that had a mind of some being, some sense?
I'm not sure how far back to go. I mean, I'm thinking about the first energy, we
like
can
the
see...
Big Bang theory.
Right, the furthest back we can see, we have evidence to show that all the mass in the universe was very likely to be at one point, and that energy of matter being in one location like that would cause an expansion that we see today. But consciousness, intelligence, I just don't see how that can possibly be brought into the discussion. It's completely irrelevant.
But is it fair to say that, starting from the Big Bang, the energy that gets more complex or comes together has a conscience or some intelligence?
Right.
Or is it just,
eventually when you
just a
come to human
natural
beings...
No.
Yeah.
But he was saying, when all the, how can you, if you put all kinds of chemicals together and all this big energy together, you can't create a mind out of that.
That's like saying I'm going to get paper and grind it up to a pulp and ink and pour it in there, and there I have a book.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm not saying as the energy has a mind like ours, as on our state, but would it be a sense of intelligence in the case that they do know to go to bond with this certain chemical and not to bond with this other chemical?
That's not intelligence.
It's no more intelligence than physics is.
Our brain is.
It's no more intelligence than physics. When I drop this, if you want to call that intelligence, it kind of takes away a lot of the meaning of intelligence there. And so I would hesitate to call that any form of intelligence.
Especially if you take it as predetermination, that's less intelligent than anything.
Intelligence in our sense of thinking, but on the simplest form of intelligence, that would be considered intelligence. To us, it's just chemical reactions and just electrons bonded with other neutrons and protons. But
and we have
it
we have
could be
physics
intelligence
behind
on
it.
the simplest form.
Simplest forms can't think.
Because all our intelligence is just simple electrical impulses interpreted by our brain.
Yeah.
That's all intelligence is to us. So that's the same thing as an atom coming together, which is just electrical impulses, right?
Okay.
It's just energy.
And that is fields of study that we're still looking into, exactly why all of this works. Current one I think I've heard is called M theory, basically the theory of everything. What's going to join together microscopic physics on the nanoscale, basically, and the really large stuff. We don't have a really good theory that ties it all together, and we're working on that. Just because we don't understand it yet, we don't put anything there. Just because I don't understand exactly why positive and negative go together, I'm not just going to say, well, there's some form of intelligence or higher power or anything like that. We don't know, and we're looking into it. We're going to find out eventually, we hope. But again, we can't just say that, it's some form of intelligence. Because that just opens up even more questions.
Well, I was just thinking on the subject, but I appreciate your opinion on it. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for calling.
Yeah, for me, it's just intelligence just isn't relevant when you're talking about the Big Bang, individual atoms. Intelligence comes into being when you have abstract thought.
No, actually, what I think? When we talk about intelligence, when we talk about human beings.
Well, sure, but animals to some degree have intelligence too.
Also, but
as you go down the evolutionary ladder, the intelligence goes away.
I know. That's why I thought this has evolved. Our brains have evolved. This is You can't talk about like the whole beginning of the world and say, oh, those little pieces, they were so intelligent to come together and create. No, it's not actually the point.
Right.
Yeah, so it wasn't a predetermination argument, but still didn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't think this discussion could have made sense. I mean, we could have rambled on about it forever.
Okay, so who do we have on lines? Let's see. We're going to go to Bob. Hey, Bob, you there?
Yeah. Hey, how you guys doing? Interesting program.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question for you. I just want to know what you guys thought, or what was your opinion on the ancient cultures that used to use psychotropic plants, like mushrooms or peyote, to understand their minds, their own psychology, and how that might relate or be potentially useful today in this society.
Well, we try not to say it's useful.
Well, people react. Different minds react to chemicals differently, and I just think it's a real crude way to experiment with yourself.
Yeah.
And like, for instance, my mind, I've never done drugs, I've never done shrooms or weed or anything, but and I don't know what would happen. For all I know, maybe I'll have I might fine tune myself to have more insight, but I think it's more likely than not that I could harm myself. And I think that it's just a crude way to tamper with your own brain. You have to make the best of what you have naturally, I think. Unless, there ever is some kind of drug that's proven to have only beneficial effects.
Yeah.
If there was no risk, but we just don't really have that yet. I have friends who have just destroyed themselves with drugs. Their minds are they're not what they used to be. These are friends that I knew in middle school, and they had better minds then than they have now because of all the weed and shrooming they've been doing. And so I don't look up to that as a good idea. Ancient cultures, I think they were probably really bored, and they didn't.
Yeah. It goes back to what you were saying earlier about rationality being taking in your senses, what you can see, hear, smell, taste, whatnot. And trying to determine what's going on in the real world using these senses. We have had millions of years to evolve, and so what I see in front of me is more than likely going to be what's actually there. What I feel is more or less likely going to be real. As soon as I introduce chemicals that, screw around with brain chemistry and how it works, that's going to start altering my perception of reality away from what's real. And so while it may have neat effects in the short term, it's not going to show you anything about what's real in the world, what's physically, objectively real.
Well, I agree with you on your first point that you made about your friend that you said who destroyed his mind.
Well, not completely. I don't want to say that. he can still function as a human being. I don't want to say completely destroyed, but what I'm saying is he's just not as sharp. And the
reason I prefaced it with the ancient cultures, because I think they knew from generations after generations of how to best use and to protect from those things happening. The way they're used today, they're definitely there's no base to how they can best be used. There's no catch net for those people to use them correctly. And at your second point about experiencing what's here in this reality. But who's to say this one is right, and maybe that one just doesn't open up another door to show us just a little bit more of really what is there.
Yeah. Well, we have to go with what science tells us and what we can see in the world. Since everybody else, I can go to other people and say, I think this is round, it's like a cylinder, but can you double check on that for me? Mm-hmm. And so we can get confirmation of things. If I take drugs and say that, whoa, it's really wacky, man. That's not something I can verify with anybody. And so there's no way to prove any of that or test any of it. And since it doesn't interact with our real life, since I've never had, large hands coming up out of cups and, ripping my face off or anything like, any bad trips or anything like that, then it's probably not real. It's not likely to happen. And so I'm not going to live my life as if it would, just in case. I'm going to assume that, that's your mind messing with things.
Right. I don't know. There's obviously no way to prove what goes on is real or it's not. But one of the other aspects that was in the study of it, and most recently in the 60s, a lot of crap went on with all that went on in the 60s in LSD. But there was also a lot of studies that went on to show that it could be very useful for our own mental health. For example, obsessive compulsive disorder. And the studies that they've done, and people realized that reason under the influence of whatever it was, why have they been so obsessive compulsive? Or alcoholics, they've come to this realization of how that alcohol is destroying their lives. So in a beneficial way, that's what I mean in that sense. Not that we can prove anything or can't, because it's impossible to prove that, but do you think there's a very real application for, in those senses, of helping our own mental health?
I think there could be a possibility there. There are several different drugs out there and, chemicals and stuff like that, we can't study because they're illegal. And that's one of the big arguments for legalizing drugs, is that then they can at least go into research and we can find out. I think marijuana, it can help with some people who have eye problems.
Right.
I can't remember, glaucoma. And so that's something to where, there very possibly could be some kind of chemical in there that helps that. It would be kind of nice to find out what that chemical is and fix it. Now, again, these are things to where I'm not saying that if you have glaucoma, you should go out and smoke pot. It's one of these things where we should research it, find out that the chemical is actually, whatever. Find out what this chemical is, and start working with that. Not just saying, well, I've heard that cocaine really helps with back pain, so let's give that out. That's not the most beneficial way to go about studying this thing. Just like with any chemical, there could be benefits to it, and we should look into that.
Right.
But again, we should be careful about it, because again, just giving out hallucinogenics and stuff like mind-altering drugs for back pain is not the best way to go about things.
No, I agree with that. All right, interesting. Nice talking to you guys. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for calling.
I always find more hope in discussing issues about drugs rationally, because I always see the evangelists on TV. There's this one, I can't remember his name, but it's this famous thing where he gets the Bible and he goes, "This is better than crack cocaine." And some people who
it does the same type of thing.
who are coke addicts might not agree with you. And I think that you have to use a rational basis. I mean, I'm very clean. I don't even drink alcohol.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends, especially my religious friends, have noticed that. They're like, "Geez, why is that?" And I try to explain to them again and again. That there's plenty of good reasons not to drink or smoke. Yeah,
I got to that one pretty early on. When I was in high school, I went to some parties where people were drinking a lot, and you'd see this guy on the couch, threw up all over himself, and it's like, ooh, that looks fun.
Mm-hmm.
And they said alcohol's an acquired taste. You got to drink a little bit to get used to it. It's like, well, I don't want to get used to that.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's the way I looked at it.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, I never did anything either. So, but okay. Anything else? All right, then we will go to David. David, you there?
Yes. Hello.
Good afternoon.
I can hardly. Thank you for your time.
Okay, got a question?
I can barely hear you.
Do you have a question or comment for us?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a question?
Oh, yes. I'd like to get back to his philosophy he was outlining earlier. The things that I remember was that to act rational in an irrational world is irrational. And it's not that people aren't capable of rationality. They just don't choose to accept it. I mean, look at the ignorance in our culture and science, and with the world being destroyed at the rate it is, I just kind of wonder where his optimism comes from.
Where what comes from?
Optimism.
Optimism comes from.
Well, a lot of it, for me...
And I'm going to shut up and hang up because I can't hear you.
Okay, sorry about that.
For me, it's very personal. For me, I used to... If you knew me 10 years ago, you might say, God, that's a dumb kid. Because I was not rational growing up. I fell hook, line, and sinker for any UFO story that would pop up, and I negated thinking. I was ignorant. And when people talk about someone else as being incapable of thinking and irrational, a lot of the people they're talking about were kind of like the way I was. Of course, I was very young. I'm talking about back to when I was, in my early teens. So, I guess that's forgivable. But I don't think, my IQ didn't shoot up, to go up past the age of 15. That doesn't really happen. I just kind of came along some good ideas. Some of them I came up through myself. I had some influences from other thinkers, and I thought, I like this. I wanted to try this out. I thought, the skeptics had better points than any defense I had of any mysticism I held true. And people just need to share rational ideas, and they're very appealing to the most irrational people. They just haven't come across them yet. But yeah, I know we see the world, it seems like the world might just destroy itself at any moment, and but all the more reason to be, to have a drive to be optimistic, to push it as possible, to not let things fall apart because of irrationalism. We have no choice. It's like kind of like a Pascal's wager thing, only it works here. Be optimistic and fix things, or else be pessimistic and let it all go downhill. I'm going to try.
Yeah. And going back to optimism here, there are certainly bad things in the world that, deserve pessimism or something like that. But there's also a lot of good stuff in the world, too, that tends to get overlooked a little bit. Depending on what side of the war you're on, for instance, they have people out there protesting it all the time, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. Or they have people out there, we have actual troops out there fighting for it, which is a good thing. We have, there are deadly diseases and, viruses and everything out there, but they have lots of people out there who are working hard to make it better. We have lots of success stories and good things that have happened. We've overcome polio, things like that. So there's also a lot of good stuff in the world, too, to be optimistic about. And it's what you focus on, I guess.
I didn't mean to imply to be optimistic about bad things that can be changed. The optimism is that they're changeable. There's actually, I think it's something the Dalai Lama said, which is actually intelligent. It's the only intelligent thing he said, but I take it to heart. He said, there's never any reason to worry. Because either you can just change it, so don't worry about it because you can change it and make it better. But if it's out of your control and you can't change it and make it better, well, then why worry? Worrying's not going to help because you can't change it, And so it's like you can't help but not worry about it. So don't worry, be happy. And but a lot of things we can change. There are better ways to do, I want to change everything. The more I look and think rationally about things, I see so much room for improvement. And I'm excited about it. I'm not all down about it like, oh, it could be better, but it's not. And, I just want to spread good ideas.
Yeah. Instead of the world sucks, we say, hey, lots of room for opportunity.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're going to go to another caller now. We have Josh. Josh, you there?
Yes, take LSD and you'll find God.
I've been told that so many times. I love that song.
Okay, well, goodbye. We would agree with that.
Negative Land. That's a song by Negative Land. I've been told, this guy's obviously joking, but I do have friends who are, I guess they're kind of like deists. They like to get high and see things and think that this is something spiritual going on, or they feel a presence among them, which just has been duplicated, in scientific tests where, people can, was it with electrodes placed in certain parts of the brain, activating certain parts of the brain, you feel some presence.
Out of body. Oh, yeah, that one. Okay.
Yeah, the feeling, and I think people get that from drugs, and they think, oh, is this God, creeping up behind me, or whatever it is that they think's going on. And it's just kind of funny because it's believers trying to talk me into doing drugs and alcohol, and I just always got a laugh out of that.
There's the moral superiority for you.
Right.
Yeah, again, that all goes back to brain chemistry. You mess up your brain chemistry and strange things are going to happen. A couple weeks ago we had callers talking about out-of-body and near-death experience and stuff like that. It's interesting, actually. I was looking into that quite a bit years ago. About out-of-body and stuff like that. And I still have a couple books on it, and I was reading through one a couple days ago, and it was interesting in that the introduction to it was talking about not so much that, you can actually leave your body and explore the world and stuff like that, while you're laying in your comfy chair or whatever, but that it's actually, kind of exploring yourself. It's in a sense like dreaming while you're awake. Because your mind is essentially making stuff up, and you're just along for the ride. So again, dreaming while you're awake. It's enhanced. The ability to visualize things an enhanced way. You have much sharper, ideas of what you're seeing and stuff like that. Again, something like an out-of-body, it's a really neat thing. That's kind of cool if you can do that. But it's showing you what your mind can do, not what the real world is like. Mm-hmm. So just like LSD, I could take LSD and see a lot of weird things, I'm sure, but that's not going to show me what's real. So
take LSD and you'll see God. Ooh, he's colorful.
God's colorful. Yeah, the Bible doesn't enter into it anymore. Yeah, where's the shroom argument in the Bible anyway? Well, we apparently have just a couple of minutes left.
Wow, that flew.
Yeah.
That really flew by.
Yeah, we're a little bit weird on the time today, and so we hope everybody's had a good show, and we'll have a good rest of the weekend, a couple hours that's left to it. And going back on a couple of things here, let's see, do we have anything else? Any other news? No news.
Oh.
Anything else for you?
That was the funny things only.
Okay. Okay, well, that's pretty much all that I have. There was an article, actually. This was an editorial by James D. This was in, what was this? American Statesman on March 17th. It was a good argument showing that a lot of believers go into, how they view the war and terrorism and all this kind of stuff. And basically he goes out talking about atheism. And how it's a better example of what's going on. Essentially, look at rational thought, look at what's actually going on in the world, and that will show you better than looking at some form of religion to tell you, what's going to happen in the world or something like that, what's good and what's bad. It was called Killing for God Shows Dangers of Religion, which is very, very true. You should never kill anybody just because of a belief system that is, very much unproven. So it was a good article, and I don't have all the details on it, but James D., if you're watching this, you rock. So, and then I think a week later, they had, again in the Statesman, they had a couple people had written in. It was pretty good, fair, and balanced. They had 2 people for him, 2 people against him. Like I say, it was a good, fair, balanced review of the article. Obviously saying that he's closed-minded to not see religion, something that he can't put in a petri dish, and other people saying, well, yeah, look at the logic behind it. So, all right. Well, 2 minutes left, apparently.
Oh, okay. Well, 2 minutes.
Anything else?
I don't know. I can't stop thinking about how cold it is in here. I feel like I'm in a cryonics chamber.
Yes, we are working on life extension technology in the lab.
No, not yet.
In our TV show. So,
we really need to enjoy this life here because there are so many interesting things all around, and we don't need to be not drugged, not drunk, not using anything. Just go enjoy, explore. Oh, this world is, though it can be comparatively so small compared to the whole universe and everything.
Yeah.
But for us, still so broad because we can travel all around, compare natural environments and everything, and animals and variety. There's so many possibilities.
So much to do.
So much to do.
Yeah.
How can anybody ever be bored? I've always been amazed by that.
Yeah, it's funny, actually, last week, we didn't have a show, which, oops, sorry. But we didn't have a show, and so I left out and I went out geocaching for a while, and it was kind of odd. I actually saw people there in the park who recognized me from the show. I thought that was kind of odd. But yeah, just going out in the natural world and just, looking at what's actually out there, it was kind of cool. Walking the park, seeing the sun, and tromping through bushes. So it makes it a lot of fun. So go out there and enjoy the real world. Use your senses. Know what's going on. And you'll be a better person for it. Don't let religion tell you what to think and how to believe and what to do in your life. Decide for yourself. Look it up. Work with other people, and you'll be happier. So we are.
Well said.
So everyone have a great weekend. There's our crew. We thank them all for coming out and helping us, our skeleton crew today. But Theist, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. We just think. Okay. We're shortening it all the time. Now we just think. Good change, though. So, everybody, I hope you have a good weekend. And we will see you again soon. So, goodbye and enjoy the rest of the show. I don't know what's coming on after us. Alex Jones, perhaps.
Or something religious. Oh, boy.
Something religious.